Our first stop that we went on, this was this big cluster here around bridging the language gap. How do we talk to executives without using Japanese words or those words? How do we frame it in what they care about? There was a discussion about, knowing what keeps them up at night, challenging them with the solution. A distinction we made between narrative and language, which is storytelling, especially storytelling framed in their words. There was a kind of a good qualifying question is if you ask a senior executive who the customer is, and they say the board or shareholders, you've lost already, and you're going to have a really hard time having any kind of lean-oriented conversations with them from that point. Yeah, we also talked about kind of getting into executives through a trusted advisor rather than making cold calls into secretaries, or if you work inside the company, how do you create a community of people like them who've had successful lean transformations and use those references, those folks, those stories as a way to make your case, make your point. Then we talked a lot about strategy deployment. How do you take a high-level vision and actually move it to execution throughout the entire organization? We occasionally use the Japanese word Hoshin Kanri, but then we try to just call it strategy deployment because that's the US word for it. We talked a lot about tiered PDCA, how do you plan, check, adjust at the various levels of the organization. And then a big piece of that is, JP called it back briefing? Back briefing of how do you get information from the kind of leaf nodes of the organization all the way back up into the higher level spots within the executive team. We mentioned a couple of good books over here that were written on the wall, The Art of Action, as well as Tom Jackson's book, Ocean Connery for Lean Enterprise, as great places to get started if you really want to dive in on how to do this. Then we drew some pictures around different models of how to take a 3 to 5 year vision and reduce it down to a 1 year true north, and then how to actually get teams to execute on that and roll the information back up about the validity of them. There's a model here about stating your goal, stating the opportunity in the marketplace, and then what capabilities you have, and presenting this together and testing throughout every layer of the organization. Is there coherence here to this? Does it make sense? All the way from the executive level down to the individual doing level. And then there was another model, a couple models here about a lot of this back briefing. How do you get information that flow up the organization to make sure that it's cohesive and works? That's pretty much it. Anyone else in the group?
A subsection about culture and openness.
I need to learn to stop talking. So there was a subsection of this that we went down a couple times where we talked about Hoshinkari and strategy deployment as a way to help do strategy deployment, but one of the concerns was how do we actually talk to executives about culture and how lean or systems thinking can be rejected by cultures. How would we talk about engaging executives to change culture, to increase trust and openness, to actually enable any of this stuff to happen? One of the other kind of concerns that came up was that the strategy deployment process can be pretty easily hijacked by people who are into command and control, and we had several people who had experience with that happening to their organizations, so that was something we're concerned about.